March 10th, 1944. The chill of early spring drapes over the fog-laden fields of Normandy, France. The distant rumble of artillery punctuates the stillness, a grim reminder of the ongoing war. Captain Edward Hayes, a weary yet determined man in his mid-30s, stares through the thick mist at the horizon, where shadows of German tanks lurk ominously. His uniform, scuffed and stained, tells stories of countless skirmishes, yet today he feels an unease deep in his gut. Beside him, Private Mark Thompson, barely 20 and filled with bravado, squints against the cold wind. "Those tanks won't know what hit them, sir," he boasts, trying to mask his own fear. Hayes looks at him, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. He has seen too many battles end in despair, too many young lives lost under the weight of heavy armor and firepower. But today feels different. A whisper of innovation dances in the air, an idea that could shift the tide. As he tightens his grip on the map, a sense of urgency tugs at him. The murmurs of a new weapon, a swift, agile tank destroyer known as the M10 Wolverine, echo in his mind, its potential yet undefined. What he didn't know was that this idea would change the war. If stories like this fascinate you, make sure to hit that subscribe button and comment below. March 10th, 1944. As the sun rises over Normandy, a chilling reality unfolds on the battlefield. The Allies are struggling against the fortified German defenses, particularly the imposing panzer divisions that dominate the landscape. The German tanks have proven to be formidable adversaries, with their thick armor and powerful firepower, causing Allied forces to incur unsustainable casualties. Experts agree, the situation is dire, and nothing seems capable of turning the tide. The Panzer IV, the backbone of the German armored forces, boasts a 75mm gun and sloped armor that can absorb hits with ease. Its superior range and accuracy have left Allied troops scrambling for cover. As of March 1944, German tank production has surged, with over 12 Eusauen panzers produced since the war began. In contrast, Allied forces are struggling to keep pace with the rapid advancements of German engineering. Reports from the front lines illustrate the grim reality. Allied tank losses have reached catastrophic levels. According to military statistics, in just the first 2 months of 1944, U.S. armored divisions lost over 200 tanks. The men in the field, including Captain Edward Hayes, know that every loss translates to lives lost and families shattered. The morale of the troops is waning, and the whispers of defeat echo through the barracks. In response to this mounting crisis, military strategists convene in tense meetings. Maps adorned with red markers depict the strategic positions of German tanks, while officers debate tactics that seem increasingly futile. "We need heavier artillery," one general insists, slamming his fist on the table. "Our Shermans can't compete with those monsters." Another officer counters, "But we don't have the resources or time for that kind of overhaul. We need a solution now." Days turn into weeks, and the impasse continues. Each failed operation only solidifies the consensus among the higher-ups. The German tanks are invincible, and the Allies must find a way to retreat and regroup. The term superiority is bandied about confidently, but deep down, everyone knows the harsh reality. Nothing works against the panzers. Intelligence reports flood in, confirming the German strategy of overwhelming force. The Wehrmacht has learned to exploit its tank divisions effectively, coordinating assaults that leave little room for maneuvering. Heavy artillery and air support fail to yield results, and the Allies are forced into a defensive stance that feels all too familiar. Time and again, they attempt to strike back, only to be met with the devastating firepower of the Germans. Allied soldiers begin to feel the weight of despair. As the chilling winds sweep through the trenches, they share stories of fallen comrades, their faces etched with the fear of becoming another statistic. Private Mark Thompson, still grappling with the harsh realities of war, confides in Captain Hayes. "How can we win if they keep rolling out more tanks? It's like we're fighting shadows." Captain Hayes nods, his expression grave. He understands the feeling. The weight of leadership rests heavily on his shoulders, and he feels responsible for the lives of the men under his command. The once hopeful spirit of camaraderie is being crushed beneath the relentless pressure of the battlefield. With each passing day, the whispers of insurmountable odds grow louder. As expert analyses crunch the numbers, they reveal a staggering truth. The German tanks not only outgun their Allied counterparts, but also outnumber them in critical engagements. With each battle lost, the available resources diminish further. "We need to rethink our approach," another strategist suggests, but the room falls silent. The consensus of impossibility hangs in the air like a heavy fog. Amid the growing sense of hopelessness, the military elite call for drastic measures. Old strategies must be abandoned, and something new must be forged. Yet as the clock ticks, the optimism fades. Weeks of failed attempts only deepen the despair, leading to a sense of resignation among the ranks. "It can't be done," many begin to murmur, echoing the sentiments of the officers in their meetings. Captain Hayes finds himself staring into the distance, contemplating the harsh reality of the situation. For every tank destroyed, 2 more seem to take its place. The men around him share nervous glances, their resolve waning as they prepare for yet another day of combat against an enemy that seems invincible. Hope flickers like a dying candle, and desperation begins to creep in. As the sun sets over the Normandy fields, casting long shadows across the earth, the cold truth becomes evident. The Allies stand on the brink of a military disaster, and the fear of the German panzers looms larger than ever. The wait for a breakthrough feels like an eternity, and the soldiers brace themselves for the inevitable confrontation that lies ahead. The specter of defeat threatens to engulf them all. "We'll never win this war at this rate," a weary sergeant mutters, his words echoing the collective sentiment of despair. The heavy silence that follows speaks volumes. The men know their fate is uncertain, and with every passing moment, it feels as though the light at the end of the tunnel grows dimmer. In this atmosphere of hopelessness, one truth stands out starkly. Innovation must be born from the embers of desperation. The very essence of survival is at stake, and the question remains: will anyone rise to the occasion and challenge the status quo? What they don't yet know is that amidst the shadows of defeat, a spark of an idea is waiting to be ignited, one that could change the course of the war forever. What he didn't know was that this idea would change the war. March 15th, 1944. In a dimly lit workshop tucked away in the outskirts of London, a solitary figure hunched over a table littered with blueprints and sketches. Major John Jack McNally, aged 32, wore the weary expression of a man grappling with the weight of war. His uniform was frayed, a testament to long hours spent poring over strategies and designs. McNally was not a typical soldier. He was an engineer, a thinker, and an innovator who believed that the battlefield required more than brute force. It demanded ingenuity. With his brow furrowed, McNally's gaze focused on a particular drawing of the M10 Wolverine, an American tank destroyer, its sleek design and formidable 76mm gun calling to him like a beacon of hope. "If we could just adapt it," he murmured, envisioning a way to outmaneuver the German panzers. The table rattled slightly as he jotted down notes, the pencil scratching against paper echoing in the otherwise silent room. This was the moment of discovery, the pivotal spark that ignited a long-held dream. Suddenly, the door swung open, revealing Major Hughes, McNally's skeptical superior. "What are you working on now, McNally?" Hughes asked, his voice tinged with derision. "More wild ideas? You've been chasing shadows for too long." "It's not a shadow, sir," McNally replied, his voice steady despite the uncertainty gnawing at him. "This could change everything. The Germans underestimate our speed and strategy. We need to hit them where it hurts. Hughes leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, skepticism etched on his face. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. You think a light tank can stand up to the might of a Panzerfool? It's a death wish. McNally felt a flicker of defiance surge within him. I know it sounds crazy, but what if we could use the M10's speed? Hit and run tactics. Keep them guessing. Keep them off balance. We need to be smarter. Or we need to get our troops some real firepower, Hughes retorted, shaking his head. You're wasting your time. As the door clicked shut, McNally's heart sank. The isolation of his vision weighed heavily on him, but a flicker of determination ignited in his chest. They'll see, he whispered to himself. They'll see what I can do. Days turned into nights as he immersed himself in research, reaching out to fellow engineers and military strategists. Each conversation brought a mix of hope and skepticism, but one name kept resurfacing, a maverick engineer named Arthur Reynolds, known for his unconventional methods and fierce independence. March 20th, 1944. The scent of fresh paint and oil hung in the air of Reynolds' workshop, where parts of tanks lay scattered like puzzle pieces waiting to be assembled. McNally stood there, heart racing, as he watched Reynolds expertly maneuver tools with a deftness that belied the chaos around him. Arthur, McNally began, his voice a blend of urgency and excitement. I need your help to re-engineer the M10. We can create something that can outsmart the Panzers. Reynolds paused, wiping his hands on a rag. You're talking about a tank destroyer against the best in the world. Sounds risky. It's not just about brute strength. It's about speed, agility, and tactics, McNally insisted, his passion igniting a spark in Reynolds' eyes. We can revolutionize the way we fight. After a moment of contemplation, Reynolds nodded. All right, let's do it. But if we're going to get this done, we need to move fast. We don't have the luxury of time. The two men dove into a whirlwind of late nights and frantic brainstorming sessions. They pored over blueprints, testing various modifications to the M10's design, even incorporating elements from the T-34, a Soviet tank known for its effective sloped armor. The stakes were high and the tension palpable. McNally felt the weight of history upon his shoulders as they began their first modifications. They replaced the M10's open-top turret with a more fortified design and upgraded the gun to a more powerful variant. Every bolt tightened felt like a step toward an impossible dream. But the first test was a disaster. The newly modified tank, affectionately dubbed the Ghost, sputtered and coughed as it failed to start. Frustration washed over them like a tidal wave. I thought you knew what you were doing, McNally exclaimed, the strain of failure tugging at his resolve. Don't lose hope, Jack, Reynolds replied, his voice calm amidst the storm of anxiety. Every great achievement is preceded by failure. We learn and adapt. With renewed determination, they revised their plans. Days turned into weeks, each attempt a mix of exhilaration and despair. Finally, on April 2nd, 1944, the Ghost roared to life, the engine growling with a fierce energy that echoed through the workshop. This is it, McNally shouted, adrenaline surging as they prepared for the second test. The sun pierced through the clouds, illuminating their makeshift arena. They loaded the tank with ammunition, hearts racing in anticipation. The moment arrived. McNally climbed into the driver's seat, hands trembling with excitement. Let's show them what we've got, he yelled to Reynolds, who manned the turret. As the Ghost surged forward, the world around them blurred. They maneuvered through a series of obstacles, turning sharply and firing at targets with newfound precision. This is working, McNally shouted, laughter bubbling up as they hit their mark again and again. But then, a sudden jolt. The tank lurched, sputtering as smoke billowed from the engine. A moment of panic gripped McNally. Not now, he shouted, frantic as they struggled to regain control. Yet, Just as the tension peaked, the Ghost steadied itself, roaring defiantly. Their persistence had paid off. They had created a machine that could challenge the might of the Panzers, and for the first time, hope surged within McNally's chest. "If you're hooked on this story, hit that subscribe button," he urged, a fire igniting in his eyes. This was just the beginning of a journey that would not only change the war, but also the course of history itself. As they prepared for their next steps, McNally knew one thing. Against all odds, they were on the brink of something extraordinary. The determination in their hearts matched the passion for change. Little did they know, the tides of war were about to shift dramatically, and they would be at the forefront of that transformation. March 20th, 1944. A damp chill hung in the air at the secret testing grounds of the British Army, located near the Thames estuary. The low gray clouds threatened rain as Major Jack McNally paced nervously. Today was the day he had waited for, the culmination of sleepless nights and countless calculations. He inhaled deeply, his heartbeat echoing in his ears. He had gathered a small team, including an unlikely ally, a former German engineer named Klaus Richter, who had defected and offered his expertise in tank design. "Are you sure about this, Major?" Klaus asked, adjusting his glasses nervously as he studied the prototype, a modified M10 Wolverine tank. Its silhouette was imposing, yet Jack saw the potential for it to be a game-changer on the battlefield. "Absolutely," Jack replied, determination lacing his voice. "If we can execute this right, we might just give the Germans a reason to fear us again." The atmosphere crackled with anticipation as the team prepared for the first test. Jack's design incorporated sloped armor with an innovative slat system to deflect anti-tank rounds. He had calculated the risks. The chance of failure loomed large, yet the stakes were even higher. If successful, they could turn the tide of the war, reducing casualties among the Allied forces. As they stood around the tank, Klaus approached Jack, his hands trembling. "Are you ready to face the consequences if this doesn't work?" Jack looked him in the eye, his own heart racing. "Failure is not an option, Klaus. We owe it to the men in the field." With a deep breath, Jack initiated the engine. The guttural roar of the M10 cutting through the silence was both terrifying and exhilarating. The team exchanged glances, a mixture of fear and hope palpable in the air. Would this be the moment they had all envisioned? The tank rolled forward, its treads churning the muddy terrain. Jack watched intently, his mind racing with calculations. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed in the distance. A sniper had fired at the M10. The bullet ricocheted off the sloped armor, a beautiful sound to Jack's ears, but he knew it was only a test of their innovation. "Let's do the next phase," Jack shouted, adrenaline surging through him. They moved to a simulated battlefield, complete with targets designed to mimic enemy positions. Jack's pulse quickened as they positioned the M10 for a live fire test. "Ready the artillery." The sound of the artillery shell firing ramped up the tension. Jack's hands tightened around the controls as the tank fired back, its cannon roaring to life. The projectile struck its target with a precision that sent a wave of exhilaration through the team. "Yes, we did it!" Klaus shouted, a grin breaking through his earlier anxiety. But in that moment of triumph, Jack felt a twinge of dread. This was just the beginning, and with success came the risk of exposure. They had conducted the test in secret, and the whispers of innovation could easily become the gossip of betrayal if the higher-ups disapproved. As the day progressed, they encountered setbacks with the prototype. The engine began to sputter. "What's happening?" Jack demanded, glancing at Klaus, whose face grew pale as he examined the mechanics. "It's overheating. We need to cool it down," Klaus shouted over the noise of the machinery. "Quickly! We don't have much time," Jack urged, the tension thick in the air. They scrambled to fix the issues, working feverishly under the looming threat of failure. With every second that passed, The hope they had built hung precariously in the balance. Finally, after an agonizing hour, they managed to stabilize the tank. Jack looked at Klaus, their eyes locking in a moment of understanding. "Let's give it one more go, but this time at full speed." They loaded the tank again, preparing to test its capabilities under pressure. As the M10 tore down the makeshift battlefield, Jack felt a rush of exhilaration. It was alive, a mechanical beast of war that could defy the odds. "Fire!" Jack commanded, the sound of the cannon deafening in the air. The shell exploded upon impact with a target, sending debris flying. Cheers erupted from the team as they witnessed their creation in action. "Did you see that?" Klaus laughed, his eyes wide with excitement. This might just work. But Jack's thoughts were clouded with the reality of their situation. "This is just a small victory, Klaus. We need to convince the higher-ups to let us take this into combat." As the day faded into twilight, Jack and Klaus prepared to report their findings to the command. The air was electric with expectation as they entered the military headquarters. Officers in crisp uniforms stood around a large table, maps laid out before them. "Major McNally, what do you have for us?" a stern voice asked, one of the senior commanders eyeing Jack with skepticism. "Sir, we've conducted a series of tests on the modified M10 Wolverine, and the results are promising," Jack began, presenting their data. "We've seen a marked increase in firepower and resilience against enemy fire. Losses can be reduced by at least 85% if we deploy this in the field." The room fell silent, the officers exchanging glances. "That's a bold claim, McNally," another officer countered. "Do you have any evidence to support this?" Jack's heart raced. "We have test footage and detailed statistics. Sir, this tank could change the tide of engagements with the Germans. We have to act now." As the discussion grew heated, Jack felt the weight of doubt in the air. "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard," an officer finally scoffed, dismissing their breakthrough. But Jack, fueled by a sense of responsibility for the lives that could be saved, pressed on. "I understand your skepticism, but if we don't innovate, we risk losing everything. The men on the front lines are counting on us." Gradually, he noticed the expressions of the officers begin to shift from disbelief to intrigue. Jack's passion was palpable, and Klaus stood beside him, his presence reinforcing their claim. After what felt like an eternity, the commanding officer spoke. "Very well, we'll authorize a field test, but if this fails, Major, you will be held accountable." Jack nodded, a mix of relief and apprehension flooding his senses. "Thank you, sir. We won't let you down." As they left the meeting room, Jack felt an overwhelming surge of hope. This was their chance, an opportunity to turn innovation into victory. They raced back to their workshop, ready to prepare for the ultimate test. With renewed energy, Jack and Klaus strategized late into the night, knowing that the fate of many rested on their shoulders. The first real battle would soon arrive, and they were determined to prove that courage and ingenuity could triumph over adversity. If you're hooked on this story, hit that subscribe button. April 5th, 1944. Whitehall, London. The air was thick with tension, a palpable weight that pressed down on all who gathered in the austere conference room. Officers in crisp uniforms filled the seats, their faces a mixture of skepticism and concern. Major John Jack McNally stood at the front, clutching his blueprints like a lifeline. Outside, the skies were overcast, a grim reflection of the mood within. "Gentlemen, thank you for your time today," McNally began, his voice steady yet quaking with the enormity of what he was about to propose. "I stand before you not just as a soldier, but as an engineer with a solution to our dire tank problem." The murmurs rippled through the room like a fresh gust of wind, a cacophony of doubt. Colonel Hargrove, a seasoned officer with an unmistakable air of authority, leaned forward, his piercing gaze fixing on McNally. "And what exactly is this solution, Major? We've heard many grand ideas, but they all amounted to nothing." McNally inhaled deeply, the scent of sweat and polished wood filling his lungs. He spread the blueprints across the table, simplistic yet brilliant. They depicted a modification for the M10 Wolverine, a tank designed to counter the formidable German panzer divisions. This modification utilizes a unique sloped armor design and enhanced firepower, McNally explained, gesturing animatedly. "We can counter their armor while preserving our men's lives. The Wolverines can be the game changer we need." "Game changer?" Hargrove scoffed, scanning the sketches with a dismissive glare. "This is just another pipe dream, McNally. We need results, not fantasies." With each word, McNally felt the weight of rejection pressing harder on his shoulders. His mind raced through the countless reports of tank losses, the desperate pleas from soldiers on the front lines, and the haunting faces of the fallen. "I understand your skepticism, sir, but every day we delay is another day our men face slaughter. What if we conduct a trial, a limited engagement to test the modifications?" The room fell silent, the weight of his challenge hanging uncomfortably in the air. Hargrove exchanged glances with his fellow officers, their expressions a mix of disbelief and irritation. "You're asking for resources we simply don't have. The war is not a playground for your experiments." "But, Colonel," came a voice from the back of the room, Lieutenant Sarah Davidson, a young officer known for her keen insight. "What if this is the breakthrough we need? Major McNally has researched extensively. Why not give him a chance?" "Is it worth the risk?" Hargrove countered, arms crossed defiantly. "We could jeopardize lives for a hypothesis." McNally stepped forward, heart racing, hope igniting a fire in his chest. "With every tank we lose, lives are at stake. The enemy adapts, and we must do the same. I believe in this, and I believe it can save lives." A palpable tension crackled through the air, the silence punctuated only by the ticking clock above the door. The officers exchanged hesitant looks. Hargrove, however, remained unmoved, his brow furrowed with skepticism. "Let's say for a moment that you're right, McNally. How do we know this will even work in combat? We need data, not just theoretical designs." A glimmer of inspiration ignited within McNally as he recalled his earlier tests. "What if I could secure a small test battalion, just a handful of modified Wolverines, deployed in a coordinated strike against a predetermined target? Are you suggesting we waste precious resources on a mere trial run?" Hargrove's voice dripped with incredulity. "Not waste, Colonel. Invest," McNally urged, his passion palpable. "Imagine the potential benefits. If successful, we could turn the tide of this war. We could save countless lives." After a long pause, a soft voice broke the tension. "I support Major McNally," Lieutenant Davidson repeated, her resolve unwavering against the tide of skepticism. "Let him conduct this test. If we don't try something new, we'll be left in the dust of history." A ripple of murmurs spread throughout the room, but Hargrove remained unconvinced. "And if it fails? If your precious Wolverines become nothing more than target practice for the enemy?" McNally took a deep breath, determination fueling his spirit. "Then we will regroup and learn from it. But if we do nothing, we guarantee our defeat. Every soldier deserves a fighting chance." The silence was deafening. Hargrove leaned back in his chair, weighing the implications. Finally he spoke, his tone resigned yet contemplative. "Fine, Major. You will have your limited engagement. But know this. If you fail, it will be on your head." McNally nodded, a mix of relief and trepidation flooding through him. "Thank you, sir. I won't let you down." As the officers filed out of the conference room, murmurs of disbelief and budding hope intermingled in the air. McNally felt a surge of adrenaline, but beneath that lay a heavy weight of uncertainty. Was this indeed the path to salvation, or merely the first step toward failure? He glanced at Davidson, who offered a reassuring smile. You did well, Jack. This could be the turning point. Let's hope so, he replied, a hint of doubt creeping into his voice. Let's hope so. April 15th, 1944. The day of the test had arrived. A secluded valley, shrouded in mist, became the battleground for McNally's Wolverines. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation as soldiers assembled, their faces etched with uncertainty. Ready? McNally called out, addressing the crew of the first modified Wolverine. Each soldier nodded, a mix of fear and determination dancing in their eyes. All right, let's show them what we've got, he urged, heart pounding as the engines roared to life. As the tanks rumbled forward, McNally's pulse quickened. The moment of truth had arrived. With each passing second, doubt lingered like a shadow. Would the modifications hold? Would they prove effective against the beastly panzers? The tension was palpable. Soldiers exchanged glances, their breaths matching the rhythm of their pounding hearts. And then, they saw it. The enemy tanks emerging in the distance, their menacing silhouettes cutting through the fog like harbingers of doom. Engage! McNally shouted, his voice steady despite the chaos. The Wolverines opened fire, and the air erupted with the sound of artillery and explosions. Direct hit, came the shout from one of the crew members, adrenaline surging in their veins. The first enemy tank fell, sending a shockwave of disbelief through the ranks, and then a second tank exploded. Cheers erupted among the crew, a symphony of hope and triumph. McNally felt a rush of exhilaration, a wave of relief washing over him. They were not just surviving, they were fighting back. As the battle raged on, losses felt almost insignificant against the tide of victories that followed. The Wolverines moved with newfound confidence. Each shot fired a testament to the resilience of those who dared to innovate. The test concluded with staggering results. Losses had indeed reduced, a remarkable 85% fewer casualties among the Wolverine crews compared to previous engagements. As McNally stood amidst the wreckage of both enemy and friend, the weight of his victory settled upon him. He had faced skepticism and doubt, but now he was not just Major McNally. He was a pioneer. The trial had been a success, but the war was far from over. Yet even amid the chaos, one truth stood firm. Innovation driven by courage could indeed change the course of history. Let's get ready for what comes next, he whispered, determination etched on his face. The battle might have been won, but the war still raged on, and McNally was ready to lead the charge toward a brighter future. As he prepared to report back to headquarters, he felt the weight lift from his chest. The journey ahead was uncertain, but the spark of hope remained. Every soldier deserves a fighting chance, he repeated, feeling the mantra solidify within him. And with that belief, Major Jack McNally stepped forward into history, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. If you're hooked on this story, hit that subscribe button. April 21st, 1944. The air in the cramped, smoke-filled conference room at the War Office in London was tense. Major John Jack McNally stood before a long table filled with high-ranking officers, their eyes cold and skeptical. Maps adorned the walls, each a testament to countless failed strategies and lost lives. Jack's heart raced as he clutched his notes, the designs for his new M10 Wolverine upgrades pressed tightly in his grasp. Gentlemen, he began, his voice steady yet strained, what I am proposing could change the tide of this war. The M10 can be adapted to counter the formidable German Panther tanks. Colonel Hastings, a stout figure with a graying mustache, leaned forward, arms crossed. And what makes you think your little project can stand against the might of the Wehrmacht? Our losses are catastrophic. We need proven strategies, not dreams. It's not a dream. Colonel, Jack shot back, his passion igniting. The M10's speed and maneuverability, combined with these modifications, He gestured to a large blueprint displayed on an easel, showcasing reinforced armor and a more powerful gun. It can reduce our losses significantly. I've run simulations. Simulations? Is that what we're relying on now? Hastings interrupted, a scornful laugh escaping his lips. The other officers joined in, their laughter brimming with skepticism. Jack swallowed hard, his mind racing back to the days spent testing in secret. I understand the doubts, but I have evidence. Actual data from our recent skirmishes suggest we're losing 1 in 5 tanks to the Panthers. With these upgrades, I believe we could reduce that loss by at least 85%. Silence fell, the weight of his words hanging in the air. Major Thompson, a younger officer with keen eyes, leaned in. Have you tested this on the field, Jack? Or are we merely speculating? No one has authorized me, Jack admitted, his voice lower. But I'm confident that in a real combat scenario... Enough, Hastings cut him off, his voice sharp. You're overstepping your bounds, Major. Your ideas are reckless. We'll stick with what we know. As the meeting drew to a close, Jack felt crushed. His heart sank as he walked out, the voices of dissent echoing in his mind. He knew he needed to take a stand, to prove that his innovations could save lives. Back in his workshop, Jack pored over his blueprints again, the sketches detailing his vision. Days turned into sleepless nights, and then a spark of resolve ignited within him. He couldn't wait for permission. He would take matters into his own hands. Weeks later, Jack found an unexpected ally in Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Fisher, a brilliant engineer known for her fierce independence and innovative spirit. You're not alone in this, McNally, she said, her voice steady as they huddled together in the workshop. If you believe in this, we can make it happen. Together they devised a plan to conduct an unsanctioned field test. Under the cover of darkness, they gathered a small team of trusted soldiers, technicians, and mechanics. The M10 stood gleaming under the moonlight, a silent promise of hope and defiance. Let's see if this baby can hold its own, Jack said, his excitement palpable. As they loaded the modified M10, adrenaline coursed through him. The following morning they approached a secret training ground located on the outskirts of London, a desolate expanse previously reserved for failed experiments. Jack's heart hammered as he watched the crew prepare the tank, his dreams and fears colliding. Ready, Major? Sarah asked, her eyes bright with anticipation. Let's do it, he answered, determination etched on his face. They positioned the M10 against an array of targets representing German tanks, each a mockery of their losses on the battlefield. The first shot rang out, reverberating through the air like thunder. The modified cannon fired, the impact sending a shockwave through the ground. Direct hit, one of the soldiers shouted, joy and disbelief mingling in his voice. As the tests unfolded, the M10 proved itself time and again, smashing through targets with unmatched precision. Each successful shot fueled Jack's hope. We're onto something here, Sarah, he exclaimed, exhilaration coursing through him. But hope was fleeting. The final test loomed, a direct comparison against an actual German Panther tank, which they had managed to secure for evaluation. The team held its breath as they set the stage for one last confrontation. The moment arrived. The M10 and the Panther faced off, their engines roaring defiantly. As the gunner took aim, Jack felt a sense of calm wash over him. This was the moment of truth. Fire, he commanded, his voice steady. The M10 fired, the shell striking true. The Panther erupted in a cloud of debris, its dominance shattered. Cheers erupted from the team, the thrill of victory mixing with disbelief. Jack's heart soared. They had done it. The modifications worked. But as the dust settled, he knew the hardest battle lay ahead, the fight for official recognition. Returning to the War Office, Jack and Sarah prepared their data. The results of their unauthorized tests, compelling and undeniable. They knew they had to confront the High Command again, but this time armed with irrefutable evidence. The following week, in another meeting filled with skepticism, Jack stood once more before the board of officers. But this time, he presented the data from their tests confidently. "Gentlemen," he began, a fire in his eyes, "these results are from our field tests. The M10, with modifications, has shown a significant reduction in losses." He paused, letting the figures sink in. "And the performance against a Panther tank? It's conclusive." Colonel Hastings shifted uncomfortably, his earlier arrogance replaced by a hint of unease. "This is impressive," he muttered, glancing at the other officers who were now visibly intrigued. "Impressive doesn't begin to describe it," Major Thompson interjected. "We can't ignore these results." The tide was turning. Jack felt the room shift as hesitancy morphed into cautious admiration. Finally, Colonel Hastings stood, his expression now serious. "Very well, Major McNally. We'll authorize a full-scale test in combat. If your modifications can indeed demonstrate these results, we'll need every advantage we can get." As Jack left the meeting, relief flooded through him. He had faced doubt and derision, but now validation was within reach. In the following weeks, the modified M10s were deployed to the front lines. Reports began to pour in, losses reduced significantly, and the morale of the troops soared. Jack's name began to circulate among the ranks, a whisper of hope in a tumultuous sea of despair. With each passing day, it became clearer that innovation, born from courage and determination, was reshaping the battlefield. Jack McNally had not only challenged authority, but he had changed the course of the war, proving that ingenuity could indeed triumph over adversity. June 18, 1945. Berlin lay in ruins, a testament to the devastation of a war fought on multiple fronts. The air was thick with the acrid scent of smoke and despair. Yet amidst the chaos, a quiet revolution had transpired. Major John Jack McNally stood in a makeshift command center, the walls adorned with tattered maps and flickering bulbs casting shadows over weary faces. He had become a reluctant hero, not from the battlefield, but through sheer determination and an unwavering belief in his innovation. The M10 Wolverine. The M10 had initially been met with skepticism, a mere afterthought in the grand scheme of military strategy. Yet, as the Allies pushed deeper into enemy territory, the undeniable effectiveness of McNally's design began to surface. Reports flooded in, documenting not just the vehicle's lethality, but also a remarkable statistic. Losses among tank crews dropped by an astonishing 85% in engagements against German armor. The M10 had transformed from a simple tank destroyer to a symbol of hope, instilling fear in the hearts of enemy commanders. In the days that followed, McNally found himself summoned to a strategic meeting with high-ranking officials at the Allied command headquarters. The room buzzed with tension, the atmosphere thick with unspoken doubts. Generals and strategists, their eyes etched with the toll of war, sat before him, and he felt the weight of their expectations bearing down upon him. "Major McNally," the commanding general began, his voice steady but scrutinizing, "we've seen the reports. You are responsible for this M10 success. But tell us, what makes it so effective? Why did the German commanders confess their fear of it?" McNally cleared his throat, his heart racing. "It's not just the firepower, sir. It's the design, the speed, the agility. The M10 allows for rapid maneuvers and surprise attacks. We're hitting them where they least expect it." One of the generals leaned forward, skeptical. "You're saying it's not the men behind the guns, but the machines that are winning this war?" McNally's eyes flashed with determination. "It's both. But we can't underestimate the importance of innovation. It adapts to the battlefield's demands. It empowers the soldiers." As he spoke, a flicker of recognition passed through the room. the abstract ideas began to take tangible shape. McNally was no longer just an officer presenting a machine. He was an embodiment of a new philosophy of warfare, one that valued ingenuity over brute strength. Days turned into weeks, and McNally's invention began to shift the tide of numerous battles. The M10 enabled Allied forces to outmaneuver entrenched German defenses, emphasizing speed and adaptability. Soldiers who once felt despair now held on to hope as they slipped behind the armored cover of McNally's creation, their fears lessened by the knowledge that they had the upper hand. Yet, despite the accolades and the newfound fame, McNally remained humble. He returned to his workshop, sketching, tinkering, and dreaming of better designs. He understood that the war was far from over, and each day presented new challenges that required innovation. The M10 was not an end, but a beginning. Months later, as the war reached its climax, McNally received a letter from a German officer who had once commanded a tank battalion. The message arrived with unexpected humility, detailing the fear and respect the M10 had instilled within the ranks of the enemy. The officer wrote of the countless sleepless nights spent strategizing against the Wolverine, a tank that had transformed the battlefield landscape. "Dear Major McNally," the letter began, "it is with the utmost respect that I write to you. Your creation has forced us to adapt and innovate in ways we never anticipated. We now understand that a battle is not just fought with weapons, but with ideas. Your M10 has changed the nature of warfare." McNally folded the letter, a bittersweet smile playing on his lips. He was reminded of the true lesson of war, that innovation does not thrive in a vacuum. It flourishes from the courageous hearts willing to challenge the status quo. History would remember the battles, the victories, and the losses, but it would also remember the ideas that bridged the gap between despair and hope. In the aftermath of the war, McNally returned to civilian life, his contributions slowly fading into obscurity. The M10 became a relic, celebrated in textbooks but often forgotten in the annals of history. However, whispers of its legacy lingered on battlefields and training grounds across the world, inspiring engineers and soldiers alike to think beyond conventional warfare. Years later, sitting in his modest home, McNally reflected on his journey. He found solace in the quiet moments, surrounded by sketches of future innovations. In his heart, he knew that the essence of his work transcended military might. It was about courage, the courage to face insurmountable odds, the courage to innovate under pressure, and most importantly, the courage to believe in oneself. As he penned his thoughts in a worn journal, a phrase emerged: "Innovation doesn't need credentials, it needs courage." He understood that every great advancement stemmed from a simple idea, born from the ashes of desperation and nurtured by relentless determination. In the decades that followed, McNally's work would inspire generations of thinkers, inventors, and leaders. The legacy of the M10 Wolverine was not merely as a tank that fought battles, but as a beacon for those willing to challenge impossibilities. The vetting of ideas and the clash of perspectives would lead to breakthroughs that extended far beyond the battlefield. "Every impossible idea has the potential to change the world," he wrote, his heart swelling with hope. McNally's journey exemplified that true innovation could arise from the depths of adversity, lighting the path for those brave enough to pursue it. As his story comes to a close, the echoes of his experiences remain relevant. They challenge us to nurture our ideas, no matter how unconventional, and to embrace the courage required to bring them to life. What impossible ideas do you think could change the world? Comment below. In the end, McNally's life stands as a testament to the enduring human spirit, a reminder that amidst destruction, hope and innovation can shine through, transforming the impossible into the achievable.